Hey, good morning. Can everybody hear me fine? Well, I'm really excited this morning to give my testimony. My testimony is a little different this morning. I'm not going to talk about, when I was saved or anything like that. I'm going to actually talk about a traumatic event, and it's something that God pulled me through. And it's just really something that's been on my heart to tell for a while now. A lot of you may not know because of how well hidden it is now, but I've got scars all up and down my left arm. And this is the story that I'm going to tell today. It was spring break when I was 12 years old. And I believe I was in the 7th grade at the time. And I was staying with a friend. It was spring break. And so I was staying with a friend. And I had already previously been in a car accident. 6 weeks prior to this, I actually had whiplash and had just got my neck collar off. And so Mom's like, okay, you can go, spend the week with your friend. And Mom's like, you can't ride with teenagers because I was with a teenager at the time. You can't do this. We had some ground rules. And my friend had some friends that were teenagers, and she was 13, I believe. But she was like, her mom wasn't home. That was back when you could just, stay at home. You didn't need parents, back in my day. But so nobody was home to tell any different. So she was like, just call your mom and say we're going to go to the mall with my sister. Her sister was 18, 19 at the time. So we were like, okay, we're going to go out with these teenage friends, but we're going to call Mom and say we're going out with the sister. So nothing good ever comes of that. Just you little people in here, I'm just going to tell you that. Because this is my story. But so we call Mom, hey, we want to go to the mall with, such and such a sister, and, we'll be gone most of the day, is that okay? Mom's like really reluctant, but was like, yes, you can go. So we're like, okay, well, we don't have to worry about her calling the home phone because we didn't have cell phones back then. You had the home number. So that was our cover for not being home. And when we had been picked up and we went out to Sligo in Smithville, and we, were just playing around at Sligo and all that, and she met up with some other people that were her friends. And so I drove in to Smithville from Woodbury. I'm coming from Woodbury, and, she is like, I'm going to go with these people. And I'm like, I didn't feel comfortable going with those people. And so I was like, well, I'm going to stay with these people that drove us here. I'm not going to go with these other people. So we go back, and I'm like, just take me back to her house. I don't know what to do. I'll just wait at her house. She'll come home eventually. And so we go back, and it's a 16-year-old boy driving, and we were in a little Chevy S10, and there was 3 of us in a 2-seater. So there's your problem number 1. No seat belts, whatever. And we are going the back roads. I don't know if a lot of y'all are familiar with the area, but we go from Smithville back to, I believe it was Eastside in Woodbury area. Anyway, curvy roads, not unlike what's here. But we were going a little too fast. He was kind of crazy anyway, like some 16-year-olds are. But he was kind of crazy anyway, and we go around a curve, and he's like, hey, watch this. Famous last words, right? Yeah. So I'm looking in the rearview mirror. I don't know. I'm just in a daze, thinking, what am I going to do? She's left me here. And I'm in a daze, so I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and I see the back tires go off. And the next thing I remember was waking up and not being able to move. I could not move. And I could not understand why I could not move. Because I had been in an accident previous, you get out, why can't I move? Like, I can move my body, but I can't get up. And somebody, we actually wrecked in front of a pastor's house, and I never did find out who it was or anything, to talk to them. And it's been so long ago. This is, like I said, when I was 12. I'm 31 now. But they come running down there, and they're like, you can't move. The truck is on your arm. So, panic mode, I'd be scared now as a 30-year-old woman, but as a 12-year-old girl, I was, panicked. And so the truck is on my arm. What basically happened was, in the midst of the flipping, not in any kind of seatbelt or anything, my arm busted out the back glass, and when we came to a rest, the top was on my arm. So we were upside down, and it's on my arm. And so the guy's like, we're going to have to get a jack, and they're like, do we wait for, emergency services? Do we go ahead and try to get it off? And I'm screaming, get it off of me, I'm panicked. I was pinned, And so they got a jack and had to lift up the truck in order to move me, to get me out. And meanwhile, the two other passengers were trying to climb over me, and it was putting more pressure on my arm, and I just thought they were going to cut it off. I mean, it was really horrible. And so we got the truck off of me. We get into town, we get into Woodbury, because they're like, well, what hospital do you want to use? Well, I'm 12, and we didn't have the technology we do now. I don't even think I knew about Vanderbilt Children's Hospital or anything like that. I'm like, get me to our local hospital, So we get to the local hospital, and I kid you not, guys, they did not do anything with me. My arm is busted wide open, you can tell by the scarring I have now, but my arm was busted wide open. You could see, now if this is graphic for you guys, this is a warning. I'm going to tell you all about it. This is where it gets graphic. You could see my bone out of this one. It broke the small bone in my arm, which is called the ulna bone, and it was protruding out of my arm. And so meanwhile, you could see to the bone, and I'm in Woodbury Hospital, and they are having my mother rinse my arm with a saline solution. My mother, for hours and hours in the emergency services, hours and hours, just sitting there rinsing. That's all we did. We got back up into a room, and they gave my mother a surgical scrub. Like you scrub down with the bristles and the sponge on the other side. They gave her a surgical scrub, and they made her scrub my arm. And we did that several times a day I think I was in there for 3 days. And the only thing that brought me through that and made that to where we could do that was, back in the day, in my day, VH1 and MTV were actual music videos and stuff. And so we'd turn that on, I'd sing through it and just put it out of my mind. That was God's strength. There's no way a 12-year-old girl could have just sang through that. And so my mom's like, they're like, oh, we're going to put you in the whirlpool to get the debris out, because there was a lot of debris in it. We couldn't close it up because it was, just the severity of how dirty it was, So they're like, we're going to put you in the whirlpool. We're going to put you in the whirlpool. We heard that, and we heard that, and we heard that. And my mom finally had enough, and we left. And she took me to a specialist in Murfreesboro. By then it was too late. There's nothing they could do. They couldn't close it up. They couldn't even set it and risk of infection is what they were afraid of at that point. And so that leads to my first picture I have. Yeah. Oh, we can't pull it up right there. Well, if y'all want to look back there, that's wonderful 12-year-old me, y'all. This is the fun part. But that was my guard dog, Pocket. The meanest dog you'll ever encounter. Meaner than Tootsie, I promise. But you can see my hand is super swelled. I mean, if you want to, you can come up after, and I can still show you scars and stuff that are on my hand. But I actually had surgery on this finger. They removed what they thought was glass or something. It just ended up being scar tissue from where it just sat. And I still can't feel this half of my finger, which is no big deal. You don't need that half of your finger anyway, I promise. So that was the best that they could do with me at that point. That was several times a day. We were doing dressing changes, washing it down, putting this, it's so stinky. It's like a antibacterial gauze is what it was. We were having to put that on there, and we did that. We did that for so long, and I had to be in that state for so long that they had to come and homeschool me because I could not go back to school because I had to have dressing changes so much. I mean, it just blows, just talking about it right now just blows my mind of, what little care was done. But anyway, so there I was. That was when I was 12 years old. If you want to do the next photo, it'll show more vivid scars on my arm. I was 13 in the next photo. I'm sorry I couldn't find better pictures, but it showed. Oh, hey, there we go. So that's kind of more. That's a year later, and that just kind of shows you how dark and red and angry looking it was. And like it's came a long way. But one of the things that I also wanted to talk, and if I get too long, just let me know, because I could talk about it forever. But no, we'll talk about that another time. I'll just keep going because we've got a lot more to talk about. So this is it's about a year later, okay, and they didn't set the bone, and I ended up having a hump on this arm, which was okay. I mean, it was uncomfortable, but it was okay. I was dealing. It was fine. It's amazing what God can just put you through, pull you through. You just deal, and that's just God, because I couldn't have done it myself. But this is when I was 13. Fast forward to 17 years old, working at Pizza Hut, pulling the pizzas out of the oven, and you have to twist. Well, I did that one time, and this is graphic warning. But I mashed where I had that hump. It mashed the meat in between the two bones, and I had to have reconstructive surgery at that point. And they went in. Met a wonderful surgeon. Can't say enough about the surgeon. He took out as much of the scarring as he could. I mean, he really mapped it out to do the most he could do with me at the time. And I have a plate and 7 screws, and you can still feel the screw heads, or I guess it's the back of it, in my arm. And that's actually what it currently looks like. I've got, sometimes it swells, it gets kind of weird, and I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's always with me. But, I mean, looking back on that, and all of that, all of the graphic, all of the, being in the sling and not being able to do anything, because even after it happened, as you can imagine, it was weak. And it still is weak, but I'm getting better. But just looking back, it's like another person lived that life, because God has blessed me so much through that. It's like somebody else lived it. I'm not even the same person, which, I mean, I know who can say they're the same person as they were when they were 12, but, I'm not even the same person. I've been if that would not have happened to me, there's no telling how much further the deceit would have went with my parents. There's no telling, you know, how much further I would have pushed the envelope, you know. I mean, just the fact that it didn't land on top of me, I mean, that just in itself was a miracle, because I was inches from that. I mean, you can imagine, this is how I was in the accident. You can just imagine, you know, how much. And it broke my collarbone and all this. I mean, I didn't know that. I honestly didn't find that out until like last year that I've had, I know, right? Yeah. Had a broken collarbone. I don't know. Okay. So it's funny. You get older and the aches and pains, and they start looking at you a little closer, right? But if anybody has any questions, you know, I know that's kind of a lot of information to take in at a short period of time, but I don't want to go over, and I could talk about it all day. But if anybody has any questions, just let me know. If you want to just come see it, feel it, whatever. I'm not squeamish as long as you're not squeamish. But that's about all I have to say without going into a whole nother story, because there's like 20 different, you know, spin-offs from every little piece I just told of, well, because this happened, or because this happened. And I could talk about it all day. So, but I won't.